working. Hello. Okay, that's working. Ladies and gentlemen, now let's get this shit going. Let me take this shit off. Check. Okay. All right. So today we're gonna go over the market. Hello. Oh wait, am I even recording right? It's like I'm howling myself. Uh, hello. Hello. So, why does it sound like a microwave? Because I look up YouTube channel. No. Let me see. Hello. Hello. Yeah, hello. Can you guys hear me? Okay, so it's working. It's fucking weird hearing myself. All right. So let's go over the S&P 500. Um, First, let's go over what made the S&P 500 go up. So here we are on. Let's go to actually weekly. So let's go over the S&P 500 where it was. I'm gonna take you back to October real quick of last year because that's where everything started clicking to me. So if you go to October, we had it was a think about how big of an impact it was. We were going to new all time highs. Let's say even like you see starting into October, we're getting to new all time highs, and all of a sudden we get that they're having a government shutdown for a month. So for a full month, all the data was being kept. Not the data, but the important data was being kept. Yeah, think about like how much data comes out every week and how much it moves the market. You have a whole month of it now. So they couldn't just say, hey, look, the government is back open again and we're gonna release all this data tomorrow. The market would take such a crazy dump because of all the bad data combined together and be so volatile and mixed up. So it makes logic to me that what they would do is they would just sprinkle it throughout the weeks or the days, one here, one over there, and then seeing and having maybe being able to see what numbers they were gonna be, they knew how the market was gonna react to it because you wouldn't just place random ass, you wouldn't just throw, let's say, out of a whole month, let's say let's say we have 100 uh data coming out this month. Let's say 30 of them or maybe 20 of them were gonna be the important ones. All the other ones were gonna be very more volatile, whatnot. They were combined or mixed up with the other 20. But now imagine like 10 of them, 5 of them landed fucking the same day or or next day to each other, whatnot. the volatile and the craziness of the. So they gotta put these data in particular days because you also have maybe earnings coming up that month. You also had um maybe earnings just certain things. Maybe there was war, maybe there was some other thing that could spike up or drop, make the market. So you have to be careful how to move the market because the market is manipulated. So, anyways, then at the end, you all of a sudden you hear fucking Trump or somebody say, "Yo, so I think we're gonna open the government. I think we're gonna do it." So the market instead of spiking up, we go on. You see right here, all of a sudden we see government shutdown. And I think on the 10th too, either Powell was gonna talk, or that's when we ended up announcing the government shutdown. After that, we end up coming to an agreement that hey, I think we are gonna open the government. Government gets good news. Here where Powell also talks, and then again, didn't make sense that the data wasn't gonna come out fucking and just be good news or whatnot. On top of that, I think we had also bad earnings from Oracle and I forget another ad company, which made it bad for the market. And just like that, just like the war, this took us. Let's say how far this took us. 1, 2, 3, 3 weeks. 3 weeks we went down, and in 1 week we recovered it pretty much. So, oh shit. So once we drop for a week, drop for 3 weeks, recover in 1 week, then we're coming to your December area. So we're getting all this bullshit data. Um, the Fed, I think the Fed talked on the second or on the 12th, and again that's when we were getting the whole. We need to start seeing you were we were getting closer to the Fed also being getting ready to push, but at the same time we were in a tight position because of the war, and we weren't getting really crazy data. By crazy data, I mean like bad labor data. We were getting sort of good economy, good labor data. That's why they made the market not really explode because we weren't really hearing rate cuts or whatnot. And every time the Fed would talk, we wouldn't get those uh, dovish, meaning nice sounding, like, hey, yeah, you guys, I think I'm gonna cut interest rates, I'm gonna be your buddy, sort of shit. We weren't hearing that, so the market was very cautious. But they did know that once we get to December, because just like they look, they like to look at the past and look at the numbers, and hey, look, 8 out of 10 times it goes up, so it has to go up. And by that I'm talking about Santa Rally. You start hearing these words all over social media, all over, especially TV news. Santa Rally, Santa Rally, Santa Rally. We come to December and we come to Santa Rally. Look how much when we come to Santa Rally week, how we hit the new fucking all-time high, right where Christmas is coming. Christmas comes, and what happens? Nothing. So they're like, hey, well, it must be the end of December. Still just no, nothing. We start going on down. So hey, maybe January. Okay, well, it must be at the end of January or whatnot. Okay. So once I started seeing this, and especially once you start seeing it the weekly, a thing that I noticed about made me weird, made me see, this is odd, was the S&P and the Nasdaq weekly wise. Because the Nasdaq and the S&P are twins in a way. They move alike in a way. They may not look the same, but they move just alike. They move just alike. Same fucking path. Same. They move just alike. If you can't see it right here in the weekly, which is so clear, then I don't know how to explain it to you. Like you see, just follow. You can see wherever the right, wherever the left finger's pointing, you can see it on the right side with the line going vertical. Same shit, same fall area, 3 weeks up, I mean, 3 weeks down, 1 week up, uh, drop, fly. So, anyways, I was seeing this. I was seeing the S&P 500, but I noticed how the Nasdaq. Let me know if you guys notice anything different about the Nasdaq and the S&P, especially in this area right here. You know those fucking books back in the days where or even in some other shit now where it tells you spot the difference or circle the difference, and it'll be a picture of the same thing but just something will be off. This is right here. This is the Nasdaq and the S&P. So right here, notice how when we come to October and that decision time, how the S&P is down here, whereas the Nasdaq just created a new all-time high with that move. See, new move. Whereas the S&P didn't. It went back down. So that was something off. That was no, not off, but that was a clue for me to know. Hey, pay attention to these areas right here, between 24,714 and 25,884 or so in those two ranges. Because if you see right here, as the S&P started going up, all you saw the Nasdaq was just consolidate in this tight area, kind of almost like a flag. You see right here, flag up, down. What was it wasn't clear, it was this, and I noticed that. But if you would get it more focused, you can see really the main areas was right here and right here. 25,547, 5. So this area right here. So seeing that, I was like, okay, so once I saw the S&P make a new all-time high, which is right here in January 5th, you can see that the Nasdaq finally did one too. After the S&P going up all this time, the Nasdaq was just consolidating. I was like, nah, why is the S&P going up and the Nasdaq isn't? Then once I focused and saw this, I was like, okay. And at that time, I knew that we still have important data coming out the next day of that week, right here. So it was a Tuesday, so I still knew we had more important data coming out. So I said, if the data is gonna come out is bad because it has to do with, and this data with its labor data, whether it be jobless claim, whether it be whatever, it was data that the Fed was paying attention to. If this data, along with whatever was happening, coming along, and the market just went back down, then I started playing, not doing a playbook. I was like, if that happens, if the Nasdaq barely broke up here, but yet you have I mean, if the S&P barely broke a new time high up here, and the Nasdaq did this crazy push up here, this looks like a trap for me. This looks like with tomorrow's data, we're gonna come back in, do all this playing bullshit, and it's gonna trap the Nasdaq motherfuckers here, and we're gonna start from there. We're gonna start going on down, and then that'll make sense, and the market's gonna start going on down. Otherwise, we're gonna see the S&P here or in these next days, especially here for the recovery, it should have shot up like crazy. Then you would have seen the Nasdaq. Where is it at? Right there, February 2nd, 12. So right here, this move, instead of doing this, it would have done shut up, stop, of course, in your resistance here, but continue driving close high for the day. Then you would have seen this move done the opposite. You would have seen it close up here. And then this one would have closed up here. All this long move would have been fucking up here. So that'll make sense how they'll play out. So once I saw that, and that's what I was telling my friends, um, or the only fucking friend that follows me for this shit on Snapchat, like, hey, the market right now is going, imagine this, the market right now is an airplane and it's going through a thunderstorm. You're going through this thunderstorm, and this thunderstorm is so big. Think about it, just imagine the worst conditions thunderstorm that a plane has ever gone through, and it's barely trying to keep up. And you know how airplanes they need to have a range. They need to have a range, altitude range to be stable and all this fucking bullshit. Well, same shit with the market. That's what the market is doing. The market, imagine the plane, the market, and the plane is stabilizing in the range. But what happened is trying to maintain the storm, the bad news, the good news, all that shit, the war, all this shit coming up. Um, Now imagine that one of the engines blew up, and then now it's really fucking just trying to see how long can we make it. Um, do we have landing strips nearby just in case so and so whatnot, based on the how everything changed. That's what I was noticing. I was like, that's what I feel like the market is doing right now, and at some point we're gonna start falling. So what is falling? To guide me, I would use the gap that was created when when the government opened back in October last year. Because if you see right here for both of them, if you see that the Nasdaq and the S&P 500, so I'm gonna do this. So notice on the left for the S&P how every time the market tried to maintain and stay above this area, and once it finally broke above it, notice how much it created support above it right here. Bounce, and we just stay. Even though we would break this, it was just creating legs, testing support areas. I go to the higher time frames, you will fucking see them. But so I started noticing that this is your first layer right here. Here's your first layer, and then right here is your second layer. And once we process this second layer here, we started. That's when we fucking went to final draw. That'll be right here in this range. And then once we broke this, I knew we were gonna start going on down. But my first warning was up here, especially when I would go to the weekly and I started seeing, okay, the weakest point, the weakest point that the S&P is showing me, and it wasn't really showing me anything, it was all ugly, was I got this strong support right here, and I got this strong support right here. And at that time, I was playing here. Whereas the NASDAQ gave me a clean structure. It told me, hey, you got strong support right here, and you got strong uh, resistance support. How the fuck you want to see it right here? So from here in between here, I knew that this candle needed to maintain. Otherwise, when we got to this price, 25,418, and depending what data, what war, what announcement, we're gonna start dropping on down. But my spider sensor started telling me since all the way, especially after the central rally, especially after January, I was like, nah, we're gonna start dropping. We can't just go on. And I said this too. The other thing was Bitcoin started dropping in October, around October, and that's also when we're supposed to get the central rally and all this shit. Let me see. I shouldn't even bring it up. Yeah, right here. I should know it was in there. So we created all-time high up here, and I noticed that Bitcoin began falling, yeah, in October, over October 20th. Actually, October 10th, like I said, yeah, October 10th, 9th, whatever it was the first time that I saw, because you saw again another trap, just like the Nasdaq did, where the Nasdaq shot up, and if you notice it, it's around the no, there's yeah, it's around the same area, same time. Just that the Nasdaq did that way later in what was it, in October? No, in December. Yeah, in December when it was in the all-time highs and they did that strong push and it came back down. Yeah, so in this after late December or January. Yeah, see, September 29th. No, 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 no. Actually, here you have the Nasdaq. No, okay, so the Nasdaq did late. It wasn't the Nasdaq, was it the S&P then? No, it was none of them. Okay, so it wasn't none of them. But this is what I'm going at. Once I noticed that Bitcoin began falling down, and especially once we got to the December area right here, especially how this, because this was like, okay, the market's gonna go one up once the S&P, because at this time it was correlated, but this was the first time it was off, because as the S&P was going up, Bitcoin was going down, and that was never the case. If you saw Bitcoin, just look at this section right here. Just look at this section right here. Notice how we consolidate. It's coming up, right? We're coming up. We're in this section here. And while Bitcoin consolidates, the S&P goes up. But notice how in this area, they both stop in this area. And after here, it's when we start flying again. And they do the same shit. Consolidate again. We get bad news, we drop. And notice how Bitcoin drops, but again maintains that lower pressure. Once we start going back up again, we both start going back up. And it's once we get to right here, and we unlock something, we unplug something, and then from there, Bitcoin just wasn't the same. Now recently, right here is when it starts correlating again, because it starts dropping with the market. This is when the market starts dropping. If you see on your left, we're getting bad signs right here. Look, we're getting bad signs. The market starts, Bitcoin starts going down, and then the S&P follows right behind. And then as we get a stabilize, so that the S&P, as we start going up, so that the S&P, so now moving. So now what this telling me, especially Ethereum, especially XRP, is that there's gonna be a fake move, and we're gonna also recover 50% of a move, especially when we have a big move like this. We have to go down 50%. So even though we didn't go here, we end up fucking actually testing that 50 and broke it. So even though we're not gonna go straight down to 50, as we get this data, news, whatever war, whatever bullshit, and we start getting these all of a sudden these dumps. Also, if we don't got to go 50, we have to fucking come down and test the resistance that we broke, the resistance that we couldn't break for fucking how many months, how many weeks, since pretty much since December till February. So we gotta come down and test it. And if not that, we gotta test 50% just of this from right here to up here, which is right here. The market isn't gonna continue flying up from here. That's what I'm saying. And that's where you're gonna see Bitcoin, Ethereum, and XRP pretty much consolidate in this area right here till they explode, until the S&P finally makes some actual move. By explosion, I mean a real move to the downside or a real move to the upside. You're finally gonna see it break out of that their consolidating area. You're gonna see XRP right here. You're gonna see it break out of that area. You're gonna see, oh fuck, come on, bitch. You're gonna see XRP breaking out of that area. You're gonna see Ethereum breaking out of this area. Even though it broke it, showing early signs of pushness, of ralliness. But again, this could just be the top right here, and again, it'll just be consolidating in a more broader range than Bitcoin and Ethereum are moving. You can see Bitcoin and XR and Ethereum are more, again, just like the S&P 500 and Nasdaq. Ethereum and Bitcoin are the same. They don't look the same, but they everything with them. The other one that's way off, but gives you it's more precise to the market is XRP with the S&P. I noticed that in certain areas. Anyway, I don't gonna want to get off track. Let's go back to the market right here. So just think about this. Just see the play out, emotions play out. We just recovered and made a new all-time high. Just last week, we made a new all-time high. Plus, we closed a month. That's very important. Um, we went up because of good earnings from, I believe it was Apple and maybe Microsoft. Along with that, the whole government playing um the whole war, playing with the whole war thing. Hey, it's over. Hey, we're talking. Hey, ceasefire and all that fucking bullshit. And just to get to make, they need some headlines, right? They need some headlines, something to the market, something to make people be like, "Oh yeah, yeah, oh that's why it's going on because look, we're in a ceasefire right now," or "Hey, look, because talks are on the way." All this shit. Meanwhile, on the news on YouTube, we hear the opposite. We hear they're still striking. We're still saying, "Hey, no, what the fuck? They're stupid. They're playing. They're bullshitting you guys." So, but now, if you fucking believe what the president is saying, the social media saying, see what's happening currently right now, I feel bad for you, sons. Um, Another thing too is that right here, we just recently created a new all-time high. All right, this is last week. This is where we close a this is where we close a month. This is where we close a week. This is weekly. The light blue lines are weekly lines. So this was the original weekly all-time high. All right. Then we created the month this last week. So if you see the market right here, I was watching. I was like, nah, the market isn't gonna go up on Sunday futures because there's no good news. We left off. On top of that, you got the 60 days bullshit that the president now has to now say go to Congress because of laws and shit. Meanwhile, he's saying, yo, technically we were on ceasefire, so those days didn't count. So you got the like confusion is of like, oh, so what's gonna happen? What are the courts gonna say? What's going on with this shit? On top of that, you still have the war with Iran, which is there's still more tensions, more fear. They also Iran made an agreement which Trump, I guess, didn't like, so it's another fucking confusion sort of shit or whatnot. So for the market to open high and stay high wouldn't fucking make sense. On top of that, you left a big gap, and by that I mean you didn't leave no strong structure here. All you see is 8 hour candles, a 4 hour candle, a 4 hour candle, 3 hour candle, 3 hour candle. You don't have no dailies, 12 hour weeklies below this. So it makes sense for the market to then break down. And as it broke down here, it's like we got data coming up tomorrow. We got data that's gonna fucking that's gonna affect investors, or investors gonna be paying attention to whatnot. So let me see if I have it right here. So this one. Trying to look for something, guys, to give you more details. Here we go. All right, so this is the data that's gonna be important. Besides the war, this is the data. So the major data is gonna move us out of the fucking, give us some push. Is gonna be Friday, and here you guys can read it what it fucking is. NFP, a monthly report showing how many jobs were added, unemployment rate, how it works, more jobs, more people earning money, more spending, inflation risk, higher wage, companies pay more, price stays higher. How the market reacts, stocks go up, jobs below forecast, wage not rising fast, meaning less pressure on inflation, higher chance of rate cuts. Bad for the market, jobs above forecast, wage rising means inflation stays problem. Fed keeps rate higher because also economy good because it's still spending whatnot. Then you would have your Tuesday, which is tomorrow, which is gonna be this right here. And let me check if the time is actually correct on that. ISM. Actually, this is wrong. Let me put in Arizona time. It's 3 hours behind or ahead. I mean, most important today. Oh, because what I thinking that it's Tuesday today, or to keep interest rate high. Wait, key data for Tuesday doesn't make sense. Mm-mm. Hold up, people. Hold up. Hold up. On the market already open at 3. Yeah. I'm gonna fucking redo it again. Hold up. See what it does with that. There is. Okay. Okay, so tomorrow we have this right here. Tuesday. Tuesday we got these two. All right. So since we have this shit coming out at 5:30 in the morning, look what the S&P is 500 is at. I'm not trying to make this fucking long. All right. I'm not trying to make this shit long. So look what the S&P 500 is at right now. So what's gonna happen is, you're gonna either gonna have Asia bring it up to 7,226, and depending how it is at 11:45, 12:30, we're gonna start breaking it and picking up earlier, or we're gonna get stuck underneath it, especially because we have a 1 hour 50 Fibonacci right here, but I'm pretty sure it's gonna change as the market does its thing. Also, we have a 4 candle 50 Fibonacci right here. See right here. That's what you see. I have this right here. Besides that, you have a 2 hour candle 50 Fibonacci right here. So that turns, what's it? That turns green. Oh shit. No, it wasn't. It wasn't a fucking 1 hour. My bad. So yeah, Asia's gonna bring it up here, fake it. If not, if we don't break 11:45 up here, we're gonna start coming back down, and then 11:45, 2 o'clock, and then start going down. Once we get to 3 or 4, we're gonna create support, and then start going up. So either we fail, Europe's gonna bring it down, or if we fail to even break from here in this range, which I believe we're gonna probably gonna get stuck most likely, again, because we never been in these ranges before, and we never closed a day a 12 hour, so it's really weak. So it makes sense for the market to just come back down, test its price, and the close right here, and then it's making the, is the data gonna save us, or if the data's gonna fucking bring us out and down? And then again with the war, are we gonna keep on getting bad news? Or are we gonna, if they're gonna save us at the end, 10 to 11 o'clock, are they gonna tweet something to bring the market back up after we get bad news data? So you gotta think about that shit like that too, which they're they're known for doing shit like that. Or at the end of the day, they'll tweet something like, "Hey, look, by the way, we're talking to Iran and tomorrow and so," and you'll be like, then the market closes, you find out like, no, they were lying. It's like, oh fuck, and you go for a trade or for a option and you lose fucking money. But yeah, pretty much that. Either Asia's gonna fail, and once we come here to your 7, 8 o'clock, and we close here at 10, or even breaking 10, or close at 10, and then your 11 and 11:45, 12:30 get stuck again, Don't break it and close it up here at 12 or 12:45. Again, we gotta shoot up. If we don't, we're gonna start going down again. Create support here, 3 or 4 or 5 o'clock. If the data comes out, data's good, well, whatnot. We're gonna end up fucking squeezing, going up, and again, like we're gonna do. I'm not trying to make this too long. I'm gonna try to do an update later on, probably like around 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock. But yes, we'll see how that shit goes.